as far as the set pieces go, I think it just needed an action set piece director. And as much as the last movie is a big dumb action movie, I feel like it's just so much easier to sit through and I'll be like, yeah, I like this. This is fun.
Dude, what you're saying is that Spotswood and Michael Apt should have teamed up, and Spotswood does all the action.
Sure.
And Michael does all the character stuff, and then weave that together.
To be fair, that is actually sort of how a lot of movies are made in a way. Most big budget action movies, whether it's a Marvel superhero movie or whatever, there's usually the director who gets all the credit everybody talks about, and they're usually in charge of the scenes of people talking in rooms and yada, yada, yada. And to an extent, the action. But usually when it comes to stunts, action sequences, chase scenes or big fight scenes, that's usually done by a second unit director. So in a way, movies are always made that way, where you always have two different directors making the movie in a way. One's dealing with the big action stuff. One's dealing with more of like what the movie really is, the story shit. And I think the movie excels on the story shit. I just think the stuff with the action is like, could be better.
Lots of all the action is just like, doesn't matter practically. It's almost like there's a disconnect from the action from the actual story.
I see them as story beats, right? So for me, the Parahawk thing is just a method for Elektra to legitimize her victimhood. And then the helicopters with the saw blades is just a story point to emphasize the fact that Zukovsky is a loose end that needed to be taken out.
Those blades were meant for you. What does Electra King want you dead for?
As I get older, I don't care about those scenes, and so I'm thinking about Denise Richards' chest as I'm watching it.
Yeah.
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 And I'll give you this. I think a couple episodes back, we talked about how at a certain point, these movies came to a point where like the writers, the producers, the stunt choreographers sit in a room and they think of like set pieces. And a lot of these action movies are set this way, where Tom Cruise sits in a room and says, I want to go to space in the next movie. And they're like, okay, well, let's write that in the movie. How are we going to do it? This movie is a proof that that's not like the other way of not doing it that way is not always the best for an action movie. At least I think it is. Like, at least that's how I feel about this movie is like, yeah, you nail down the script and the plot makes sense and you checked all these boxes. But at the end of the day, is the audience going to sit there and be like, I had a great time? Because remember, when we talked about GoldenEye, I feel like those things are in balance. In balance. Like they are that the action set pieces and the story stuff, I think they're like this the whole time.
Motivated action.
They're like this. I think the story stuff in this movie is like this, and I think the action stuff's so far down.
Exactly.
Versus the last movie we saw was kind of like this.
Yes,
and it's just kind of for me. It's kind of for me. I'm like, I feel like I want this. I could be swayed about where this ranks, but for me personally, I feel the same way. Is that this movie? I get what you're saying, Charlie. But I rather would watch Tomorrow Never Dies than I'd watch The World Is Not Enough most of the time. And even so, I would even watch the next movie probably before I'd want to watch this movie for other reasons, but we'll get to that movie.